About 3 weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to meet some young talent in this country, from this country. And, we were talking about various issues. And some of these young talent, some of these youth, they would ask different questions to me, different varying questions about what I'd said, what I'd done, what I'd written, and they just wanted to know more. And I, in turn, would also engage with them and ask them what they thought their role would be in the future. Now, some of them, first of all, I've got to say that these young, talented people, I'm very impressed on the one hand because I enjoy engaging with the youth of today. I enjoy engaging with them to see what they're thinking, what they're doing, how they are handling issues, how they are thinking about the future of this country. And a lot of them have very grandiose ideas. A lot of them have very big ideas. And a lot of them have dreams, big dreams. And it's good to have these kind of ideas. It's good to have these big dreams because it's something for you to focus on and look forward to. But the one thing that I find a bit bothersome, or a bit, not to say alarming, it's a little bit, bothersome, is the fact that no matter how talented they are, no matter how qualified in the sense that they have graduated from very good universities, or they are currently in wonderful universities overseas, that they come back and they don't really know how to ask questions. And that's not the only thing. It's that when you ask them a question, when I ask them a question, they find it very difficult to understand what I'm asking, or they find it difficult to answer the questions, even the simplest questions of all. I find that to be a little bit disturbing, which goes to show you that the kind of quality of education that they have suffered through in this country before heading overseas was one of being spoon-fed, and therefore they were not encouraged to ask questions. They were not encouraged to engage with the teachers, or they were not encouraged to engage with their peers in class and ask serious questions, ask questions which have more weight to them. And I was a bit bothered by this because I've been talking about how we need to restore our education system. We need to completely discard the one that we have now and restore it to something better. I've repeatedly talked about this, and I haven't been specific, but I have been general. But I have said before that our universities are in dire need of being reformed. Not simply by just tweaking it here or there, that we need to have a proper reformation. We need to completely restore the qualified individuals to be in the universities, not those which are elected through political favor. And of course, my comments have always been declined by those in power and authority, because it seems to me that they would prefer an ignorant population rather than an intelligent population, because if there was an intelligent population, perhaps they fear that their magic tricks will be discovered, will be uncovered, and therefore they would rather the population remain as ignorant as possible. Now, we are making such an accusation, but there is merit to it, because we can see from the way things are being run that there is no order, there is no rhyme, no reason. There is a lot of argument, there is a lot of disagreement, there is a lot of apathy, and it's a very sad and dangerous thing to see. So when I see the youth from this country, they go overseas to brilliant universities and they come back and they have these grand ideas and they can't share it with anybody because they've been told from when they were in school, don't ask, don't question. But it is their right to ask and question. They are responsible for that, actually. They are actually showing responsibility by questioning, by asking, and I encourage them to do more of that. But we have to also temper the enthusiasm. I mean, if you have these grandiose ideas. Sometimes these grandiose ideas get swallowed up. We need to temper them a little bit and put more focus into these ideas. But I don't see that happening with regard to the Malaysian education system as it is today. There is no focus. There is no quality. There is no qualification either. And one of the reasons, in fact, I was remarking to one of the youth that I was talking to, I was reminding him about my school days when I went to school as a young boy in a primary school. It was a good time because the curriculum then was good. They knew what they were talking about. We didn't have a heap of subjects. We only had 2 maybe. And that was language, which was both Malay and English, and perhaps writing, learning how to write. That was our first year of education, just these 2 subjects. And from there, we kept on with the languages, with the English and the Malay. And by now, we already knew how to write. But now, we started learning simple mathematics. Simple addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. And we learned the multiplication tables. And that went out for another year. And then the next year, we added on another subject. Just a simple subjects. Very easy ones, like the easy subjects of natural science, physics. We started learning about electricity. I mean, these were the kind of things that we learned when we were in primary school. Basic things, basic tutorials in order to prepare our intellect for what was to come. And what is to come was the universities. See, we had all these subjects like music. Music was another subject that we all had to take at one point or another. Why? Because music realized its logical position in education. For instance, we already mentioned just now that we had languages, English and Malay. Now, these were repetitive kind of languages. We had to completely study how the grammar was constructed, how do we use the tenses, how do we use syntax. These things are things that we had to grasp. And then we started doing mathematics, simple mathematics, and that is conditional logic. Then we started doing a little bit of literature. We learned about Abu Nawas, we learned about Papande. I mean, simple stories from the Malay cornucopia of literature. All of this was intended to prepare the intellect for what was to come in tertiary education as well as in undergraduate and postgraduate education. We first had to establish that our intellect, the way we think, is correct. And therefore, we had these stories in literature, which was all focused on conditional logic. We also had Pantun dan Sloka, the, what would they say in English, like nursery rhymes, like fables. But all of these were meant to condition your intellect. That's why we're calling it the conditional logic part. It's the if then, if then, if then. All of that was a training. And by doing this, we could understand mathematics better because we studied literature, because we studied these Pantun dan Sloka, the conditional part of it. Therefore, we understood how to arrive at conclusions correctly, which helped us in mathematics, which helps us in the sciences. Now, that doesn't exist today anymore, unfortunately. We have discarded those things because we think we're more sophisticated. We start with electronics. We start with how to run a computer. But that is not going to organize your intellect in a logical, correct manner. This is just going to teach you repetitive training, that's all. We have been complaining many times. I've been hearing the complaints from the parents that talk about rote learning. That's exactly what's happening. We're just memorizing. And the parents are also to blame for this because they want their children to score, get as many A's as possible, without considering the fact that what is more important is for the child to have a proper intellectual understanding of what he's actually doing and learning. Now, it's true that not all education suits everybody. There are different kinds of education. There is also the trades that people should learn if they can't go and study in universities. Some people just don't have the aptitude, but that's not something to be ashamed about. There are other things you could be talented at. Now, because of this, because our education system has failed the student and done injustice to the student and also to the system itself, we've done injustice to the system actually. What happens is when we have graduates who have amazing results in the examinations, then they find themselves in another country, in a fantastic university, in a very good university, and they find themselves to be like a fish out of water because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to behave, they don't know how to ask questions, and therefore they feel isolated. And that is actually a big tragedy because they think they are actually being exposed to something better, and they are. They are being exposed to inquisitive minds. They're being exposed to how to research things properly. So when they come back here with that training in mind, they start trying to apply that to what is happening here. Unfortunately, they haven't understood what is happening here, and therefore the application also becomes misguided. This is unfortunately what I find. Although they are enthusiastic, and I commend them for that, although they have great ideas and big dreams, and I commend them for that too, but there needs to be focus, and unfortunately there's a lack of focus, precisely because the education system has done an injustice to the system which it belongs to, as well as to the individual, to the students. It's caused an injustice to them because it has not given them the proper focus or training, the proper intellectual maturity. Now, we are open to any of the youth who would love to come and sit down and talk with us. I'm open to any of it. I'm more than happy to engage more of them if they want. And I'm also happy to engage with educators, whether they be in the government or in private universities and institutions of learning. I'm happy to engage with them as well and to impart some of my knowledge about what curriculum we need, what curriculums we should have. Now, in this video, I've been a little bit more detailed as far as how we should teach our primary school education. As I said, we only need to have a few subjects to begin with, and you just keep adding on the subject as the years go by. Some of the subjects you've already done in the past, you drop those and you add something else. But you never overload the student with so many subjects. That is doing the opposite of educating. That is actually putting a lot of burden on them, a lot of stress on them, and it doesn't educate them at all. It does the exact opposite. So less is more. Don't start thinking that you can add on another subject, add on 20 subjects for your O-levels. It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. This is not going to benefit them when they get to university. In fact, it's going to be a deterrent to them, to their success. Important thing is literature, language, mathematics or music, and sciences. But not all the sciences at once. Some parts of science should be taught, not all of it. When they get to the university, they're going to start repeating the same subjects again. We're just going to give them a foundation. You don't have to be a genius before you get to university. That's not going to happen, especially with this education system in place. And therefore, we need to consider seriously about reducing the subjects that students are required to take, and we have to have a proper balance between the humanities and the sciences. In other words, the literature is also part of science in reality, if you think about it. I mean, these pantun dan sloka are part of literature, but they contain a kind of logical analysis which is inherent in science, in the natural sciences, and which is also necessary to understand the natural sciences. And therefore there is a symbiotic relationship between the two that apparently some of the ministers in government have not been conscious of till now. And therefore it's something to think about. So I'd like to encourage more of the youth to continue doing what they're doing, to continue asking difficult questions, and if they need to have guidance or they need to have more explanation or elucidation, I'm more than happy to help. Thank you.